The Gadaa system of the Oromo people. The Gadaa system is an indigenous egalitarian democratic system practiced among the Oromo nation of East Africa. The Gadaa assembly takes place under a sycamore tree, symbolically representing its emphasis on dialogue and consensus. Problems and purpose. The Gadaa system is an indigenous egalitarian democratic system that has been practiced among the Oromo nation of East Africa for the last 500 years. Among other structural elements of the Gadaa system is its legislative body commonly known as Gadaa General Assembly. Gadaa is a holistic system of governance encompassing the political, social, cultural, economic and religious affairs of the Oromo people in Ethiopia. As a system of governance, the Gadaa operates in stages, often 10 stages with 8 years separation. The power of the Gadaa General Assembly is to exercise supreme legislative authority. Its functions include, but are not limited to, reviewing laws at work, proclaiming new laws, impeaching the men in power, and settling major disputes that could not have been resolved at the lower levels of its judicial organs. Any decision passed by the General Assembly is final and cannot be reversed by any other assembly. The legislative and adjudicatory supremacy of the General Assembly is historically conditioned and culturally deep-rooted. Origins and development. Discourses around the origin of democracy contain a clear binary separation between us and them, which oversimplifies the complex historical evolution of political systems. In the majority of cases, we refer to the Occident, the West, whose academics hold the standard history of democracy to be a modernist, universalistic, epistemologically orthodox, single trajectory event. The other category is them, the Orient, the rest who provide a convenient counter-narrative, a substandard story of relativistic, epistemologically unorthodox multiple trajectories. Benjamin Isaacan warns that considering Western democracy as the only way for the rest of the world misses the broader human story of the struggle for an achievement of democracy. Citing Roxanne, 1997, Williams and Warren also suggest that it is vital for political theorists to problematize the dominance of Western intellectual traditions, conceptual frameworks, and institutional forms and devote our energies to fostering a transcultural conversation, or dialogue among civilizations. The place of Africa in the standard history of democracy is often overlooked. The conceptualization of the post-colonial state in Africa is also highly influenced by the present predicaments, see civil wars, famine, corruption and others, of the continent. Hence, regard for African indigenous egalitarian institutions and its continuous development has little or no space in academic discussion. One such institution is the Gadaa system of the Oromo people. Some scholars underline that the Gadaa system of governance is genuinely African and provides a potential solution for some of the democratic crises we face today, be it in the global south or global north. It is difficult to tell when exactly the Gadaa system began, since it seems as an intrinsic element of the indigenous Oromos' everyday lives and not an institution. However, counting back the Gadaa leaders in power, now at its 71st Gadaa leader and multiplying it by 8 years, one can reasonably conclude it has been practiced since at least the early 1400s. Moreover, gathering under a sycamore tree known as Oda is part of traditional Oromo culture. Today, the sycamore tree is a symbolic representation of dialogue and consensus, where the local community comes together to make new rules and resolve disputes. Given the vastness of the oromia, 363,136 square kilometers, and its population, 50 million, assemblies take place in several places and assemblies are named after the place of gatherings. For instance, among the Borana Oromo it is known as Gumi Gayo. Gumi means assembly and Gayo refers to a place of water well. Among the Central Oromo it is called as Chafe, meaning assembly at the edge of prairie grass. Among the Guji Oromo it is known as Yayi Mae Boku. Yae means multitude and Mae Boku refers to the place. Participant recruitment and selection. In principle, every person can attend the Gadaa General Assembly. Differences in terms of age, status or political affiliation may not bar a person from taking part in the assembly. However, it is mandatory for all living former Abba Gadaas, presidents, former and incumbent Gadaa councillors, not less than 30 in number, and clan elders to convene to the assembly. The assembly was led by a speaker, ex-Abba Gadaa. In a new development, women were allowed to attend the general meeting, something previously not permitted for them. Serna hopes that it is inevitable that women continue to participate and deliberate in Gadaa General. How it works. Process, interaction, and decision-making. Again, the Gadaa system is an indigenous egalitarian democratic system practiced among the Oromo nation. The Gadaa General Assembly takes place under a sycamore tree, a symbolic representation of dialogue and consensus. A holistic system of governance, the Gadaa operates in stages, often 10 stages with 8 years separation. Unlike other Western democratic systems, the Gadaa system has 5 permanent political parties whose members assume leadership once every 8 years. Within 40 years, all 5 parties serve their nation constituting one Gadaa. The power of the Gadaa General Assembly is to exercise supreme legislative authority. Its functions include, but are not limited to, reviewing laws at work, proclaiming new laws, impeaching the men in power, and settling major disputes that could not have been resolved at the lower levels of its judicial organs. Any decision passed by the General Assembly is final and cannot be reversed by any other assembly. Historically, the process of enacting laws by the General Assembly across central Oromo was quite different, especially before the mid-19th century. The process is dramatic, beginning with the Gadaa leader climbing to the top of a large stone from which he jumps down solemnly, shouting, "Seri Bue," meaning, "the law has fallen." De Salviac explains this dramatization as an expedient of infantile simplicity, but by its nature it is basically to make deep impression of the open imagination of the crowd. Hence it creates the sense of imagining people without law, order and closure of government where an offender goes unpunished and all other laws will be null and void. Following the dramatic expression, the assembly reclaims the law by shouting, "The law! The law! We want the law!" Eventually, the president climbs up on the rock again and responds to the swelling assembly stating, "Seri Ba," meaning the law is raised. Following this event, all participants burst into joy. General procedure. Nowadays, among the Guji Oromo, the adoption of any laws by the Gadaa General Assembly follows a strict procedure starting with the speaker, ex-Abba Gadaa, opening the agenda for deliberation by all. Then, discussion on the proposed agenda takes place in a traditional and orderly manner which privileges those with seniority. Following this, the speaker recounts the proposed agenda and the main points of discussion. Finally, upon completion of the series of deliberations, he asks, "Would there be anything but peace if we said "these are our laws," and the assembly responds unanimously. The speaker requires every assemblyman to take part in the Gadaa General Assembly calmly and actively engage in the deliberation. In the middle of the deliberations he intervenes to make sure that a topic is meant to be in the meeting for discussion rather than debate. Above all, he holds that the assembly is not the place of showing one's talent of speech or a place to judge a speaker's mind, but it is the place for seeking solutions to societal problems. Hence, he seeks to balance the individual freedom of expression on the one hand, and the orderly environment of deliberation on the other. Following this, the speaker opens the space for all participants, in particular for the Gadaa councillors, to deliberate on agendas encompassing environmental, social, political, and cultural matters. Then, the next speaker says "Kafais," meaning, "the chance is mine." The person who says "Kafais" ahead of others is accorded the first chance to speak. Each speaker is required to repeat the fundamental moral values before proceeding to the discussion before voicing their opinion on the issue. When finished, the speaker says "Tagis," meaning, "I am done," and the next person who wants to deliberate says "Kafais," and continues to speak. Each speaker may support or oppose the view of their predecessor and, in doing so, the views of the minority are eventually swallowed by the majority consensually. Influence, outcomes, and effects. In its current political context, the Gadaa system is relegated to local-level practices. The past regimes as well as the current government are responsible for the demotion and underdevelopment of the Gadaa system. The Gadaa system of the Oromo people. The Gadaa system is an indigenous egalitarian democratic system practiced among the Oromo nation of East Africa. The Gadaa assembly takes place under a sycamore tree, symbolically representing its emphasis on dialogue and consensus. Problems and purpose. The Gadaa system is an indigenous egalitarian democratic system that has been practiced among the Oromo nation of East Africa